Well, this photo that you see on the screen is a picture of Finland. I've been going to Finland quite often. There's a program there to help people improve their lifestyle, and this is in the summer. But I also had the opportunity of visiting Finland, which is located, if you see in a map, in the very northern part of Europe, also in the winter. So if you go to Finland, there is something you have to do, and that is called the sauna bath. Have you heard about the sauna? Okay, it's hot rocks that they put water, and it becomes steam, and that is something that the Finnish have been doing for a long time. In fact, the word sauna is a Finnish word. So I was there also with my family in the winter up in Finland. It was about -8 degrees Celsius, which would be something like 24 or so Fahrenheit. And after going to the sauna bath, this is what we did. If you notice, there is snow there on the bottom. Can you see that? And you can see there my daughter. That lake is just a little bit over 33, 34 Fahrenheit. And there is my wife. And that's me. So if you can see, by the time I get out, look at that. Everybody is gone. This is actually very good for you, okay? Finnish people do this every single day. And there is actually studies that show how your immune system works better when you do this. Don't do this if you have a heart problem, okay? You're not going to get out of that water, believe me, okay? And I'm coming from Weimar. Weimar is in Northern California. I'll be telling you more about it tomorrow. It's in Northern California, east of Sacramento. We have beautiful trails. We're located in the Sierra Mountains, and it's an institution running since 1978, where people come and get healing. For example, this is a study that I'm about to publish. Is one of our patients that came to our New Start program, and after making the right lifestyle changes, by the end of the program, he had come with a bag of medications about that size. By the end of the program, we have almost stopped every single of his medications. And we did mathematics. Now, because he stopped all those medications, if you do the math, he is actually saving $53,800 worth of medications. Man, you can buy a house, isn't it, with all that amount of money. And see, this is something that happens at every single one of our programs. As the person deals with the root cause of their disease, then healing can take place in their lives. This is another study we published, this one about depression. We'll be talking about this on Saturday. Our depression program is showing a 98% response rate. 98% of the people that do the lifestyle changes, their depression goes away. What about the 2% that doesn't improve? That's what I like to call the disobedient patients. Okay? Here we're telling them, make changes in your diet, stop smoking, go to sleep earlier, control your thinking, and all these good behaviors, and they don't want to do it. I am very sorry, but you have to do your part if you want to see the good results. And basically, we propose that there are 10 groups of causes for depression. By identifying them and reversing them, mental healing takes place. Again, on Sunday, don't miss Sunday Saturday morning, where we will be talking further on this particular topic. And this one, how those patients that come and do those lifestyle changes, we can help them stop many of their psychiatric medication, such as benzos, these Xanax and this type of medications. In a matter of 10 days, we're sharing here what we are doing in order to accomplish that. And one of the things that we use instead of that Xanax, which has a negative effect on your mental health, is lavender oil in an oral form. Lavender oil has the ability to help you deal with anxiety without the addictive effects of the Xanax. And this other one on vitamin D. This is a very important vitamin for your mental health and even to prevent things like cancer and dementia. Now, this is how the rule goes. If you live above San Francisco, are you guys above San Francisco? Yes, isn't it? I know because I'm I'm east of San Francisco and I went north here. So I know for sure you guys are north of San Francisco. If you live north from San Francisco, you don't get enough vitamin D in the winter months. And you need to follow the guideline that I learned when I was living in Norway. I lived in Norway for many years. I speak Norwegian because of that. And that guideline says the following. If the month has the letter R, you need vitamin D. August has an R? No. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, then what else? That's it. Now go out and get your vitamin D in the sunlight. So watch out, Washington people, okay? You need that vitamin D. And especially the darker your color, the more your sun exposure to generate vitamin D. This other one on activated charcoal, something that every household should have some of it. Activated charcoal has the ability to absorb things, including poison. And that's what we're showing in this study that we published, how spider bites, and specifically brown recluse spider bite, which is a very poisonous spider, responds very good to poultices of charcoal. This one on exercise, how your exercise ability, your fitness, can increase quite quickly in a matter of days as you do exercise, as you start an exercise program. Now, something improves called the METs, metabolic equivalence. And if you're able to improve your METs in your body, two advantages you get from that. Number one, your risk of disease decreases, and your risk of premature death also decreases. That's why exercise is an essential part of the equation in order to have a good lifestyle. And this other one on suicidal thoughts, something that we have to deal with in our depression program, how suicidal thinking decreases as you start an exercise program. And it's been published this in the scientific literature, how exercise is as good as medication regarding your mental health. In parentheses, if you want to find all this research, you can find it on that website, ResearchGate. So you can either type the whole address there, or in your Google, just type those three words, Francisco, which is my other name, Ramirez, ResearchGate. Those three words will take you to that repository of my research. There's more than 100 papers published there. Also, this Twitter account where I give you the latest on lifestyle medicine and tips to motivate you so you can continue doing these changes in the long term. Also, there's a YouTube page there with many, many videos in different languages and where you can learn more about different topics that are there. All of them, by the way, is free. I'm not selling you absolutely anything. And also, if you want to come and travel with me around the world, you can follow me there on that Instagram page, and you can see what I am seeing around the world. One last clinical case. This is one of our patients in our New Start program. Classic patient that comes to our New Start program. Patient has diabetes. His control has not been very good, so now he has damage to his nerves. Now he has neuropathy. Look at his blood pressure of 150/78, even though he's taken already 2 medications for his blood pressure, and he has a serious problem with his weight. So what happened? We put this patient on a healthy lifestyle, and in a matter of 18 days, his blood pressure came down to normal levels. As he lost 16 pounds, we had to stop his blood pressure medication because he no longer needed it. His sugar control for his diabetes also improved dramatically to the point that we also had to stop his diabetes medication. Now, he didn't say, "Ooh, I got better, I'm going to go back to my old lifestyle." No, he learned his lesson. And from now on, he made the commitment to continue with that lifestyle. In a matter of 5 months, he already has lost 83 kilos, 83 pounds. No longer needing blood pressure medication, no longer needing diabetes medication. He continues doing the lifestyle changes, and by 9 months, he has lost already 111 pounds. And 11 months later, we do complete blood test. His blood pressure continues to be completely normal without any medication. His cholesterol is fantastic. His bad cholesterol is also where it should be. Your bad cholesterol should be 70 or less. His prostate exam came down to normal. But the most surprising number that you see in that page is this hemoglobin A1C of 5.5. It means he is no longer a diabetic. His diabetes has been reversed. See, there's two different things. One thing is a diabetic under control of exercise and diet. He still is diabetic. This one is no longer diabetic. Now, as Pastor Ruddy says, I have 27 years of working in lifestyle centers. This is not something like, oh, every 10 years I see one of these. No, we see this almost every single program. Diabetes can be reversed as long as you make the changes soon. If you take time and you wait and wait and wait, diabetes is destroying your own pancreas. And once the pancreas is gone, you cannot do anything to reverse it. You can control it with the lifestyle, but you cannot reverse it. So if you're diabetic, you need to do these changes ASAP. He continues doing the changes, and in a matter of 18 months, he has lost 139 pounds. And in a year and a half, he has lost 141 pounds. You can see the before and after. No longer hypertensive, no longer diabetic, no longer obese, as the lifestyle changes have dealt with the root cause of the problem, and reversal of disease has taken place. So, this is something we're going to learn tonight, what happened to these men. And for that, we need to learn a new concept by the name of epigenetics. If you're not into genetics and these things, don't worry, I'll explain to you this in simple language. Think about this epigenetics as a light that is up here in the ceiling. What makes that light bright? Well, first of all, there's a bulb there, isn't it? What else is there? Well, there's a cable. What else is there? There's electricity. Now, you can have the bulb, you can have the cable, you can have the electricity, but will ultimately determine if that light will go on or off is the light switch. Yes or no? In the same way, our current understanding of disease is not that it's a matter of good luck and bad luck. It is a matter of genes. So you have disease genes and you have health genes. So disease genes is something we inherit. For example, you may see the following pattern. There are families in which there is lots of disease in those families. Have you ever noticed that? Okay. Lots of members in that family are sick. Why is that? Epigenetics explains that. See, we inherit the genes, but we also inherit the habits. And the combination of both of them turn on or turn off disease genes or health genes. So the name of the game is to understand what we can do to shut down those disease genes. Now, here you can see something interesting. How? Epigenetics, think about epigenetics as that light switch that turns on disease or turns off disease. Epigenetics reveals how the luck you have, what does it say there? The choices that you're making changes what? Your genes. So you can have disease genes inherited. Your father may have died of heart disease. There could be cancer in your family and so forth. Yet, not because somebody in your past had it, it doesn't mean it's going to happen to you, because through epigenetics, those disease genes can be shut down. Okay? Now, not only on you, but who else's? Your kids. See, your choices are turning on health genes or disease genes, and you will give those genes and some of the position of those switches to your children. That's why by making wiser lifestyle changes, you actually can give good inheritance to your children. Now, when the first genes were described three-dimensionally, that was such a big thing, they gave him a Nobel Prize to the persons that described this. And we thought that everything that was written in those genes was what was going to happen to you in the future. Now, if you're not into genes and these type of things, I want you to think about those DNA and genes in the following way. As a cookbook. Anybody here has a cookbook? What's a cookbook? Basically, a cookbook is the step-by-step of how to arrive at something. It tells you there. put this amount of flour and add these beans and mix it with this, and then put it in to rest for such many minutes, and then put it in the oven. Step by step by step by step procedure at how to arrive at something. That's what your genes are. The DNA is the name of the whole book, and the particular genes are the different recipes. There's recipes for all kinds of things: to maintain your body, to help fight disease, and even the instructions of how to make your body are written there in that book. Or think about your DNA as your cell phone, and the genes are the different programs, the different apps. Let me ask you this. In your cell phone, do you run all the apps at the same time in your phone? Yes or no? No, so you're going to crash your phone if you do such thing. In the same way, you don't run all the genes at the same time. What determines which genes are turned on and off? The need. The need is what makes you turn on certain apps. If you're lost, well, there's an app there with a little map, so then you click on it, and then it'll tell you where you are. If you want to send a message to somebody, there's an app there for that. You click there, and then you write your message and send it. If you want to look for something in the internet, there's an app there that you can run Google or whatever, and then you can search the information. See, the need determines which app you run. In the same way, the need determines which genes you turn on and so forth. So when we're talking about turning on the genes, this is actually what's happening inside your body. When you are turning on the genes, a process of different parts start to take place in order to read that gene, in order to interpret that gene. So let me show you that in an animation. This is a cell, and we're going to go inside the nucleus of the cell. Inside the nucleus of the cell, that is where we find the famous DNA. This is the DNA. So when a gene gets activated, the following process takes place. First, we have to open the DNA in order to read it. So a micro machine helps us open the DNA. Then we need to make a copy of the particular recipe that we are interested in. So another micro machine assembles and starts making a copy of the recipe that we are interested in. Now, we have not finished. We just make the copy of the recipe. We have to interpret the recipe. So now this recipe needs to identify at the door of the nucleus. If it identifies correctly, the door opens and it starts going outside of the nucleus. We still are inside the cell, but now outside of the nucleus of the cell. Outside of the nucleus of the cell, there is another micro machine that knows how to interpret that recipe. And this is the way the interpretation takes place. There are three segments here, and it needs to find the complement part of those three things, and then the protein, the resulting protein, is being formed on the very bottom. And if we were to zoom out of that process, then we will see here is the end result. Here was the recipe that we were interpreting. Now, we are still not done. Now, we have to fold that protein. So, there is a micro machine that knows how to fold that protein. And The angle of the folding needs to be accurate. If the angle is not correct, this protein is no good. So this needs to be done also in a very accurate way. Once it's finished, there is one last step we need to do, and that is something that works like a little truck. Will pick this end protein and will take it to wherever is needed. Question, is this something very simple? This is extremely complex, yes or no? Yet it's happening right now inside your body. Okay? And every time the genes get activated, this is what happens inside the cell. Now, let me share with you something fascinating. So, we have 1 trillion cells. Okay? So, every cell in our body has the same cookbook, okay? Has the same DNA. As I mentioned to you, every cell has the same copy of that cookbook. And I mentioned to you that the DNA knows the instructions are there how to make every organ in your body. Okay? In other words, did you know that the cookbook that is located in your hands knows how to make the brain? The recipe is there. How come you don't have the brain here? Okay. The feet, it knows how to make the liver. The instructions are there of how to make that liver. How come the liver is not on your feet? You know what's the answer? Epigenetics, remember? We said that with epigenetics, the genes are turned off and the genes are turned on. That means that when it was time to make, for example, the hands, all the genes not related to hand, what happened to them? They were shut down through epigenetics. And the genes that are related to hand, those were turned on so that we could have hands here, head here, lungs here, liver here, and so forth. So when you were inside your mother's womb, there was like this concert turning on and off all these genes until we arrive at what we are today. Malformations, in which there's an extra finger and stuff like that, happen when something turned on something that shouldn't be turned on. Okay? And that's why the malformation took place. Now, it's interesting that in the book of Psalms, it says that your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed, and in your book they were written before they were made. Which book is that? What is the name of that book? Anybody? The D and A, okay? In that book, in that cookbook, it says what's the color of your skin, how tall you're going to be, even what type of personality you're going to have, and also what type of musculature you're going to have, what type of talents. All these things were written in that book. Now, when the genes are turned off, the body packages those genes so that in the day that you may need them in the future, it can turn them on as needed. Epigenetics also explains the following phenomenon. Look at these 2 girls. They are identical twins. See, every single one of us have different cookbook. Okay? That's why we're different, But identical twins happen to share the same cookbook. Okay? Now, notice their hair. Any difference there? And no, they didn't paint their hair. Even though the book says your hair should be this color, how come they have different colors? Because by some reason, the gene related to hair color on one of them turned on the other one turned off. Epigenetics also explains this particular dog. Notice his eyes. See, you have only one book. It's on every cell, but it's the same book. It says what color of eyes you should have. This dog, by some reason, the gene related to eye color turned on one and turned off in the other one. Now, you can even visualize the genes that are on and the genes that are off. For example, this is the nucleus. Remember, in the video we saw, we went inside the nucleus, remember? And the DNA was stretched out, remember? It's because only the DNA that is stretched out, that is active, is able to turn on those genes. Okay. And you can visualize that. Do you see this light color area here? That's where the active DNA is stretched out. That's why it looks lighter. While, do you see these dark areas here? That's where the turn off DNA is. As I told you, when you turn off the DNA, the body packages it so it has higher density. That's why you can actually visualize all the DNA that was turned off. So, why are we talking about all this? Okay, we're talking about that so that we can understand the next part. Let's apply this knowledge we just learned about epigenetics. There is a special mouse that is called the agouti mouse. Have you ever seen a yellow mouse? No, because usually mice are not yellow. Why is this yellow? Because these mice artificially, they turn on the disease genes and artificially they turn off the health genes. And by messing with those genes, they end up affecting the color of the skin gene. That's why he became yellow. This mouse will develop diabetes, it's going to develop obesity, it's going to develop heart disease, it's going to have a premature death because the disease genes are on this mouse. But notice the fascinating study that was done. Do you see these two mice? This one has the agouti gene, this one does not. So what they did, they had this mouse and they put the mouse when she was pregnant, they put her on the New Start program. You know, New Start program. You know, change of nutrition, exercise, water, rest, and so forth. And then the baby mouse was born. Did you know what happened? The healthy lifestyle was able to turn off the disease genes on the baby and turn on the health genes to the point that this mouse, you could even see the change in the color on their skin because those disease genes were turned off. And this is the fascinating thing. When they published the paper, they reported that these changes were inherited to where? To the what? Third and fourth generation. Anybody has heard about that third and fourth generation? Who wrote that? Moses. Anybody knows where Moses got his PhD in genetics? How did he know this information? You know, here it is. You know, very well said. It is found on Exodus and it is found on Numbers also. where he mentions that things are inherited to the third and fourth generation. Be careful. Your choices are having an impact not only on you, but who else? The third and fourth generation. So, good choices will turn on the good genes, bad choices will turn on disease genes. And that's exactly what this published paper shows us. It shows the opposite. On this study, they had these rats. When they were pregnant, instead of putting them in the good program, they put them on the wrong program. Food high in animal products, high in fat, high in junk food. And because this pregnant mother was eating these junk foods, that turned on the disease genes on this baby rat when it was born. In fact, when they analyzed the brain of that baby rat, it had literally changed. And that baby rat started having a lot of pleasure by eating junk food. Is that good or bad? Bad, because that's what it started seeking after. In fact, when they follow those baby rats into the future, they saw that they have problems with their cholesterols. They have problems saying no, end up eating more than what they should. They like to eat a lot of fat. They had an early menstrual period, and they have problems with their weight. So, as you can see, our choices do have consequences, even if we don't like it, is the way that it works. Notice this interesting study. This is from the Dutch. They're actually continue to publish papers based on this study. If you know a little bit of history, you will learn that the Nazis went after the Netherlands and they conquered them. The reason why they were interested in the Netherlands is because the Netherlands has farms everywhere. They produce a lot of food. So by conquering the Netherlands, they had a good food source to send them to their troops that were fighting the war. And because the Germans took the food from the Dutch people, there was not too much food to eat. And there were pregnant ladies that were surviving in about 580 calories a day. That's like 1/4 or 1/5 of what you need as a pregnant lady. And surprisingly, these babies made it. But because there was so little food, what they call the thrifty genes were turned on. In other words, they were able to survive with very little, these babies. In the same way, by the way, it happens if you come from places that have experienced famines in the past, you can have exactly the same effect. So these babies were able to survive with very little. Fortunately, the war was over, but unfortunately, the bad diet came back to the Netherlands. And all the meat and dairy and rich foods like cakes and cookies came back to the Netherlands. And once those thrifty genes that were used to eating very little started eating those overabundant foods, those foods turn on the disease genes on them via epigenetics. And when they follow up those people, they found out that the risk of cancer, hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, and many other diseases were increased due to the fact that those genes were used to very little, and that overabundance was extremely harmful to their genes. Now, there's many things that have an effect on those genes, including stress, for example. Stress can turn on disease genes. That's why we need to learn to deal with our stress. And notice this published paper. What does it say? Science has discovered that what we what? So it means in your home you have something extremely dangerous. It's called the fork. Okay. What you are poking with that fork, isn't it, is either turning on your disease genes because they have the biggest effect on those epigenetic switches, or it can be turning on your health genes. And that is when your choices make the difference. What are you going to do? Are you going to turn on disease or are you going to turn on health? That's why it has been published that if you eat fewer calories, actually your lifespan expands. Why is that? Because excess amounts of food turn on disease genes. Through what mechanism? What? Epigenetics. Also, this powerful study, this happened not too far from where I live. This happened in the San Francisco area. They had 30 males with prostate cancer. And instead of going through the normal treatment, what these males received was intensive lifestyle changes. And this is the way that the study took place. First, what they did, they took a biopsy with a needle. They poked that prostate so they can get a sample, and they put that in the microscope, number one, to confirm the diagnosis of prostate cancer. And number two, they wanted to quantify how many of the genes were on. Remember the video when the thing was coming outside? If I can count how many of those things are coming outside, I can indirectly understand which genes are on, because only the genes that are active are the ones that generate those recipes. If the gene is packaged, it cannot generate those recipes. So they count that, and for 3 months, what they did, they follow a whole foods, plant-based diet, together with stress control, together with exercise, stop smoking, and all these good behaviors. Notice what happened with 3 months of following a whole foods, plant-based diet. You can see here the results. Let me tell you how to interpret this. Do you see these strange letters here on the right side? Those are the names of genes. Genes have very strange names. And then you have this line here in the middle. That's the after. This is the before. And what it does is patient number 1 is here on the very first line, and the genes that were on and off. And then patient number 1 in the after. And then patient 2 and 2 and 3 and 3 and so forth. Now, just by looking at that graphic, any difference? Yes, isn't it? Okay, when we talk about cancer, we talk about 2 big groups of genes. We have a group of genes called cancer promoter genes. Do they sound good or bad? Bad. They're the ones that make the cancer grow. They're the ones that make the cancer metastasize. They're the ones that continue to feed that cancer. And then we have what is called cancer inhibitor genes. Good or bad? Good. When those are on, they have a cancer protective mechanism. They help the cancer cells to commit suicide and self-destruct I want to have those cancer inhibitor genes on. Notice what happened with 3 months of following that vegetarian, plant-based, whole foods diet. 400 genes associated with cancer were turned off or down. Good news or bad news? Good news. And 50 genes associated with cancer inhibition were turned on or up. Now, you don't need to wait until the day they give you a diagnosis of cancer to start following this lifestyle, yes or no? If you start following that program today, this is what's going to happen inside of you. The cancer genes will be turning off and the health genes will be turned on. In fact, in a separate published paper on the same population of cancer patients that were being followed by that plant-based diet, you can see the cancer size at the beginning and 1 year later. Good news or bad news? What's happening? It's shrinking. Why is shrinking? And the answer starts with an E. Epigenetics. As the disease genes are being shut down, you can see what's happening there. And we know very well how plant-based diets, your risk of cancer is decreased very much. In fact, this is a very interesting study. This is what they did. They had cancer cells from breast cancer, and they cultured those cancer cells in a petri dish, and then they fed the people the average American diet. You still eat a little bit of antioxidants and so forth. They're very little, but there's still some. And when they put it to those cancer cells, this is what happened. You can see these white spots. That's where the cancer died, but still, a lot of the cancer still survive. Can you see that? This is where the cancer is. Now, they did second part of the study. This time, they cultured those cancer cells and they fed these ladies a pure vegetarian diet, whole foods, plant-based diet. Then, after a week, they took out the blood from those ladies and then they pour it in this cancer dish. Notice what happened to that cancer. Good or bad? Fantastic, isn't it? Those cancer cells are being destroyed. And this is the issue. Every single day, you and I are generating cancer cells. So, by the choices that we're making, we can make the cancer laugh or we can destroy it. What do you want to do? You know? So you can see this one. This is the one with the standard American diet. This is the one with the whole food plant-based diet. Absolutely huge difference that it makes. So stress can be good for you. Too much stress is harmful. Too little is harmful. So having too little to do is not good for you. Having too much is not good for you, but having that middle ground is where your immune system works the best. So another thing that has an effect on your epigenetic switches, your sleep patterns. Notice the study, 2 young people, healthy people, were divided in 2 groups. One group was sleeping 6 hours or less. The second group was eating 10 hours. Too much, by the way. And they did that for a whole week. By the end of the week, both groups stayed up for 40 hours. And then they took their blood so they could measure the epigenetic effects on the sleep deprivation. What happened? Those people that were sleeping only 6 hours, they turned on 711 disease genes by the fact that they were not sleeping enough. Is sleep important? Absolutely. You need to prioritize rest. Exercise also has an effect. In this study, 20 minutes of exercise. Is that a lot? That's actually not a lot. You should actually be shooting for a little bit more than 20. But 20 minutes of exercise, when they check the muscles, that turn on the health genes. And we know that very well. See, apoptosis is on a cancer cell. How many of those cancer cells are dying? Notice what happened when you follow a plant-based diet and exercise compared to just exercise, okay, compared to not doing nothing. Is it a good idea to do exercise also? Yes, but it's also a good idea to change the diet, and then you even have a more cancer destroying effects. Notice this interesting study. Fathers that exercise, what happened to their children? They are what? Smarter. Why? And the answer starts with an E. Epigenetics. You turn on the health genes and you inherit, isn't it? You give us an inheritance, those healthy genes to your child, and they become literally smarter. So, in closing, epigenetics is like this polar bear. If you go up to the very north to see where this polar bear lives, you're going to say, man, it's really cold here, isn't it? I don't like it. It's too cold. But you know what? The polar bear is having a blast there. He is happy there. God made him to live there, and he is happy there. Now, what about if you say, I'm gonna take that bear to a nice and warm place that I know. You may like it, but what if you put that bear there? You think that that bear is gonna be happy. What's the answer? No. See, God gave us a lifestyle. And when we do that lifestyle, we are the happiest and we are the healthiest, as those health genes are turned on and disease gene is turned off. But when we are following the wrong lifestyle, it's like this bear in the desert. It doesn't work very good. And you start turning on your disease genes because of that. So let's remember that by making changes, we can deal with the root cause of the problem. Disease never comes without a cause. The way is prepared, and disease is invited by what? By bad luck. By what? Disregard of what? Of the loss of health. So that's what we're going to be doing this weekend. We're going to be reviewing those laws of health so that we can obey them and we can have good, healthy lifestyle. So by changing my diet and the way I live, I change which genes, which switches are going to go up, which switches are going to go down. If I change those switches, that will determine which genes will activate, disease genes or health genes. And if you can start turning on the health genes, that will change you literally. Thank you very much. May God bless you. May you make those changes so that those disease genes are turned on, not only on you, but on your whole family. Thank you very much.